Hi, Susan. Welcome to the Women Waken podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes, so wonderful to have you and so excited to talk about this very pertinent and fabulous topic, which is money. Money and wealth and affluence and abundance. Wow. It's a lot of things to consider and such a big part of our lives.
Definitely. Integral part every day.
Yeah, for every single person. Everyone has a relationship with money. It's something that unless you get totally off the grid and find a way to live in a remote island where there is no currency, but even then you have, there's still the value of what you need, resources, right? Ultimately, money is a resource.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so our relationship with that is something that can be very complicated.
Definitely, because it's so survival based.
Yes. Yeah. It's integral to our survival and our sustainability in our lives. So yeah, I can't wait to get into this with you. And I'm so glad that you offer this. I've personally have never met a money coach before. I've never really heard about it. Makes sense. I mean, financial guides and coaches. Yet I'm so glad that I have somebody who's also spiritually focused to have on the show to talk about this.
Well, I love that you have this space where a person can be a money coach and their 100% spiritual self.
Yeah, definitely. So Susan, you and I met originally through Jessica Hadari's group, through her business mastery circles. And then we got to meet in person last summer at a summer solstice celebration.
Yes, that was really beautiful. Sitting outside at the table in a beautiful garden.
Yeah, in Bolinas on the coast. It was foggy because it was Bolinas, but it was still beautiful.
Yeah.
On that day. So that was so great to get to meet you and have fun with all those wonderful, magical ladies. We did a drum circle to welcome in the summer. It was pretty fantastic. So yeah, so that's how we got connected. And then Susan, can you share with us about kind of what your work looks like now? Now that you're established for a while now as a money coach. What is your business? Who are your clients? What kind of work do you do?
Great. I'm a certified money coach and I help spiritually oriented women overcome their obstacles around money. And usually that is based in some kind of trauma. And we explore that and go deeply into it. And I have a group program that I offer. So we meet three evenings a week and dive into each person's issues. But I also have a whole system that helps people to identify what their dynamics are and where they came from. And just through the awareness that starts to happen, that begins to shift things for them. So that's the work I'm doing. And I'm also getting into how to incorporate social justice into my work. And I'll be sharing about one way that I'm doing that right now. So that's been something that's been a passion of mine for a couple of years, and just a lot of learning that I've been doing, and really wanting to have a diverse community, which really takes doing my own inner work to be that person that is a safe person to talk to money about, and secondly, to feel comfortable no matter what your cultural background might be. So that's been something that I've been cultivating. And I had a bookkeeping business for 15 years that I am now down to just a very small few clients. So that's a piece of what I'm up to that doesn't take much of my energy, but it's something that supports me with pretty much passive income right now because I have somebody doing that. And so for my own personal growth right now, I'm looking at financial growth. I'm looking at ways to develop more passive income. So that's a piece of the whole wealth conversation.
Yes. That's the dream to find those. I know as well, anyone who, is on the clock with their time where you can only do so much in a week. It's wonderful to kind of broaden your outlets and your offerings so that it's not just something where you have to be directly there with someone else. It's, you can write books and have, webinars and all these things that people can take home and watch and do in their own time. Yeah. So I'd love to hear more about that, because I think that's what everybody's kind of looking to incorporate. You hear about that more and more people, side hustles and side businesses where people can get that other stream of income.
Yes, it's important when we're thinking about just developing a portfolio that is going to grow and support us, and to be able to have the time freedom that we want.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, it sounds like you are living your soul's calling, your soul's purpose. Do you feel like you were led to this work?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It just started to call to me probably about 10 years ago. And this idea of a money coach. Now, I didn't think that I was going to end up in the money world. That wasn't something I planned or got educated for at all. I was always a creative person. And I had a music therapy degree. I have a music therapy degree. So I was headed more, that involves psychology too. So I was always interested in psychology. And I was a musician and an artist, which I'm reclaiming now, the artist part of me.
Oh.
Yes. And so, yeah, this thing of being a money coach came after falling into the money world, really, where I was at Schwab for a number of years and became an investment specialist there. And what I learned about the money piece is that in a past life, I had been abused around money, like shamed and lost everything and gone through this whole, trauma. And so in this life, I'm here to help heal the relationship with money, not just for myself or for the people I work with, but on a larger level. So that's what I was told in a reading. And I'm really glad that there's a place that I can share that piece.
Yes, I'm so glad you share that. And I've had a few guests have pieces like that in their story. And I love that it's able to be brought to this space and that people can hear it, because I think that, it's to each their own, whether or not they align with that or resonate with that, but I very much so do. And I found that looking into and exploring insights into past lives has been so illuminating into sort of explaining and shedding light on our current lifetime and why it's here and why certain things sort of are harder for us, are challenging for us, why we're drawn to certain things. And I think that that's helpful. It kind of gives you another piece of the puzzle, more pieces of the puzzle, rather than feeling like we only have this one little piece of this lifetime.
Definitely.
So when did you have any struggles personally? Were financials something that were a challenge for you in this lifetime at all? Is that what drew you towards this a little bit after you were more kind of musical and artistically inclined? But what specifically made you think, I want to, or was it just that inspiration that, oh, this is what I'm here to do? Or did you have a connection with finances?
I did have an avoidance, I would say, of money and a pattern of living very small. I didn't put a lot of importance on money. I just took whatever job came up and didn't really think about how much I was going to make. I would say in my first jobs, I probably didn't even ask how much I was going to make, and in the money archetype system that I use, that's the money innocent, just kind of having the blinders on. And so I lived very small for many years. And with the bookkeeping business, it was flexible and allowed me to do a lot of good self-care, which I needed at the time because I was going through chronic fatigue and, just needing a lot of health support. So, but it was always time for money. And there was this tremendous stress of getting the hours in, and yet when tax time came around, I had never saved anything to pay my taxes as a self-employed person. Somehow that just completely escaped me. So I'd be juggling around, taking from my retirement savings that I had gotten at Schwab and borrowing from credit cards and things like that. And I did incur debt at one point, especially in a relationship where I was codependent and letting my partner just use my credit because she was also dealing with chronic fatigue and couldn't work. So it was a mess. And I ended up having to pay that off over a long period of time. So when I finally paid off my debt in 2016 or 2015, I think it was, then I thought, okay, it's time to pursue this money coaching thing that's been tapping me on the shoulder. And I had worked with a money coach that really helped me. And then I found Deborah Price's training, the Money Coaching Institute, and she has a certification program. So I went through her training, and it really gave me a turnkey business to be able to just start working with clients right away.
Wow. Wonderful. Wonderful. And then you also have a background in music. You said you do music therapy, and I was lucky enough to hear you play your violin at the solstice. It was so beautiful. So is that something that you thought you were going to do more of in your career earlier on? And did you start that from a young age?
I think that when I went to college, I thought I would be a music therapist. And I did that for a couple of years, but the mental health situations that I was in, those environments were really rough. And I didn't really resonate with it 100%. So, and I didn't probably have the maturity to branch out on my own at that time, but I've been playing violin since I was 7 years old and was always creative with art. And I also had my spiritual awakening when I was 15 years old. So those things have been with me for a really long time. And in the first couple of years of doing music, doing money coaching, I just thought I needed to be kind of mainstream with it so that people would, like, don't rock the boat. And then at a certain point, it's like, no, I am a spiritual person, and this is who I am. And this is what my money coaching practice is going to be. And these are the people I want to work with, the people who have that orientation. So I have brought my spirituality into it 100%. And then I also have brought the violin into it. I didn't really think I was going to be a professional musician. I just am not the person who is driven that way, where, you're going to practice all day and have that be the center of your life. You really have to be driven to, I think, achieve that. But it's always been a joy for me, and I love to improvise. So that's the main way that I use it, is to create a heartful environment and channel music to do some healing. I like to bring different elements into my work that are body centered and right brain centered. So I use it for that.
That's so wonderful. That's so wonderful. Music is so powerful, sound healing, and it's so soothing and balancing. I find that, when you're feeling distraught or off, there's, energy, right? Sound healing is energetic, kind of aligns with attunes with your body's frequencies, and kind of seems to just sort of straighten things out. And, money is energy, which is an interesting concept that I imagine, you incorporate. And, it operates the same way as anything else that's energetic, in that there can be a real push and pull, and a real, battle with it, to feel like you need to hold on to it, or chase after it, or obtain it. And it's an interesting relationship. It reminds me almost of food. I've struggled with an eating disorder. I specialize in working as a therapist with people with eating disorders. And it's, the binge purge, the restrict and the indulge, and just your relationship with it becomes so complex, where ultimately food is your energy. So you kind of ask, there's something more to this. Food is just a material, energy in the material form. It's not, anything more than that. So it's the same sort of, what's your relationship with that? And similar with money. I have a lot of friends who do struggle a lot with financial issues. And I've listened to them, and it reminds me a lot of an eating disorder, because I'll find that they will just talk all the time about money. Like, oh, I just never have enough. And I'm struggling to pay for this. And I don't know if I can do that this year or buy this because I don't have the money. And then they'll get a bunch of money, and then they'll just spend it. And they'll just suddenly start, rather than saying, okay, I'm going to, keep this and not get into, they'll spend a ton of it and, buy a lot of stuff. And then they're right back to that lack place, that insufficient place. So it was just interesting to see, because I was like, that's kind of how I have always struggled with food. It's like, okay, well, I got to lose this weight. And then as soon as I do, it's like, oh, I just want to eat and get. So that, yeah, it's just interesting, the similarities.
Very much a parallel path of recovery for the two. And I usually bring a food person into my program. I have speakers come in sometimes because there are often food issues for people who have money issues, and probably the other way around too.
Yeah.
Because it is an addictive cycle, and probably similar to food, there is usually some trauma element to it that triggers some of these behaviors, and being able to recognize when that trauma is activated can be really helpful for making better choices. And looking at the origins of these things is, I think, really helpful too. And, one of the pieces that just comes to mind is mindfulness. And I'm wondering if that's a piece of what you bring in to working with people with food. It's really important on the money side of things.
Yeah. Well, I think mindfulness is always key, because otherwise you're just sort of reacting to everything. To me, mindfulness is when you're able to just be in that still place, and you're not reacting, you're just receiving, and you're able to just sort of sit and look at what is. Because if you don't look at what is, it's just what you said. It is an addiction. Money, the addiction, the cycle of, money gain and loss is an addiction. The cycle of weight gain and loss is an addiction. And just like any addiction, it's all based in a lack of, there's no actual sustenance that's occurring. You're not being fulfilled by what you think you need. People who just want more and more money, it's not like they get a certain amount and they're like, okay, I'm good. I feel good. I finally filled that hole. Any addiction is that bottomless bucket, right? It's like you can keep pouring into it, and I know that my experience with eating is that, again, I'll think, oh, if I just got to this weight, then I would be perfect and I'll keep myself at that weight. But then it's almost, once you achieve what you thought you wanted, it's like something goes off and you like don't even want to look at it. Like you don't want to acknowledge like, oh, I'm exactly where I want to be. You just start to self-destruct. It's like, oh, I want to, I'll just have this indulgence and this and that. And then all of a sudden you're right back to needing to lose weight again. So it's almost like you don't know how to sit with what you think you wanted, because you don't know how to be mindful. It's distraction is an addiction, right? That chase is addicting, to always be needing something, because it's like, well, what would you do if you had everything you wanted? Someone who doesn't know how to be at peace and to be with themselves and to be mindful isn't going to be able to do that. It's addiction to chaos, right? A constant need, a constant up or down or left or right or some kind of chaos.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it also comes back to being able to love ourselves. And I look at this cycle of self-love, self-care, and self-worth around money.
Yeah.
So when we are really taking care of ourselves and treating ourselves with love, then the self-love grows and the self-worth grows. And that's the thing that our decisions need to come out of. So, and to be able to quiet down and be with our feelings and look at whatever's present in the moment, so that, like you said, we don't have to go and create distraction and drama.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's just so hard for people. And it's definitely not what we are modeled very often in our families. A lot of families have a lot of challenges financially, not all, but a lot do, struggling to, make ends meet. And so people can grow up in a family where it's constantly, they're hearing and they're getting the messages of, we're not stable. How are we going to get money this month? How are we going to pay for that? And so it becomes this sort of, insecurity or fear. A thing that's interesting is I have actually met a lot of people, or quite a few, who have achieved great success and they have a lot of money, but they came from families that were maybe on welfare or in a position of lack, and they never feel like they have enough. It's like they have achieved this level of success, but they're always like, yeah, but okay, well, now I just need to get to this next level and the next one. And they are workaholics. You know, I had this friend where it was like his health was compromised. And I said, don't you think it's time to slow down? And he said, I can't slow down. I got to support my family. I have to do this. I want to get this car. And I said, well, but what about what you have now? You got a lot of stuff, but you can't really enjoy it because you work so much. And it like he's like, I can't think about that. Or so, you know, he just didn't want to see it. He didn't want to see that he was just continually pushing himself. So, you know, that's an interesting thing, is that I think that people who early on in life have a lot of money and security, are just constantly chasing that dragon of like needing to get more. And there's never, again, because it's that bottomless bucket. Like there's never, the limit is infinite. You can always go for more. And it's the same with, you know, they're all related, like image, like how you look. If you don't feel attractive, there's almost nothing that's enough. You're going to want more and more and more, because there's always like a higher level of attraction to you can be. And then money, you can always get more money, and achievements, right? Success. It's like, oh, okay, well, I got this award, but what about that person got this? So all these material things are so connected, where we're just constantly battling and fighting for more or to get what we want. But what we want is so nebulous because it's not actually connected to our center, to our essence. It's out there in the material. So it's not even real.
Yeah. And you mentioned that this friend came from a family that, or you've seen people who come from a family where there isn't enough and there's that constant message of lack. And that sense of lack can get handed down through generations. So for people who have come from the Depression era, or their grandparents came from the Depression era, it's really amazing. They may have grown up very comfortably, but that imprint has been so powerfully instilled into their parents that it's right there in their nervous system. And it's so powerful how those, what's the word that is the new, you know, genetically passed down patterns. I can't think of it at the moment, but these patterns can get passed down in our DNA.
Yeah.
So, so that's one side of it. And the other side of it is that sometimes it doesn't even have to have anything to do with money. So in my own case, we grew up comfortably, but there was sexual abuse. And I've heard people on your show talk about sexual abuse before, and the damage that causes for our self-esteem and for our ability to expand and be visible and, you know, really show up as the fullness of who we are. So in my case, that was really, I think, the thing that directly related to my living really small. And so much of the money growth piece is being able to heal those kinds of traumas, and then learn that it's safe to increase our capacity for love, for joy, for how much space we take up in the world. Because as you have, the reason people spend right away is because they're not comfortable taking up that space. When you start to save money, you are expanding the amount of real estate that you occupy energetically. Mm-hmm. So it's really powerful to see people be able to do that as they heal these wounds, whether it came from money wounds or other wounds in childhood. And it also would look at the other side of it, taking the practical steps of just setting up automatic transfers in a savings account, for example, or tracking your money can be really empowering. And that's the money warrior. So you can approach it from both sides, where you're doing this healing work on the inside and also taking these empowering steps. And then they come together, I'd say, at the center of your spirituality, really, because that's where we always can fall back and come into that space of love and acceptance that is a generative space for making healthy and loving decisions.
Yeah, in all regards, right? with your money, with
Yes.
your body, with your health, with, the food you eat, your diet, with your lifestyle, with what, all these things, again, all comes back to the same thing. If that center core isn't, you don't feel connected with it. If you feel like it's tainted or that it's, not there even, because I think that's, always at the crux of any addiction is often trauma. And the idea that because of what happened to us or because of who we are, that there is something, just sort of like you said with money, that we're not worthy of having real greatness or, real wealth or real success or real love or any of those things. And it might not even be conscious, but it's this subconscious idea that, that's not me. I'm that person that, maybe it could be abuse when you were younger, or it could, be an incident that happened, or, just any form of trauma that really made you challenge yourself about who you are and question who you are, and those stick with you so much, those events. And, as in my own work and as a therapist, that's the hardest piece, to allow people to see that they truly, at their essence, are brilliant and safe and miraculous and worthy and so lovable and have their own brilliant, bright light and uniqueness to shine, their own gifts, finding their way to exactly what they're meant for. But if they don't believe it, you get lost, and and when you feel lost, you grab at things outside of you for comfort, to feel better, to have something, some path to walk. And it's often not a healthy one. It's often that, again, that path of seeking until you find yourself. You're always going to be seeking, right?
Absolutely.
Seeking through money, seeking through sex, seeking through drugs, food, everything. It's, but it's kind of like we're starting to figure out this puzzle, I feel, and that's why I really started this podcast, is because I feel that people like you and I and all the people I've had on this show, both men and women, of course, all genders, it's not just it's called Women Awaken, but it's really just more about that feminine energy that's about balance. That's about like that core, I feel like that's the essence of feminine energy, is the grounding, rooting energy. And I feel like so many people now are recognizing, like, opening up their channels. They're hearing that calling, that nagging that says, there's a work I'm meant to do to bring something to this space, to heal this space. I read a book once that said, you came to the space to heal the space. And I feel that's what all of us are, as healers, are doing, is we recognize that's why I'm here. I'm not here. But I feel like a lot of us who come into this work had to go through very traumatic and troubling lives and events, because that it's almost the catalyst for remembering and recognizing, well, we have to learn for ourselves before we can teach others, right? So until we really truly know that devastation and that pain and suffering and how we had to heal ourselves, we don't really know how to heal others. But once that happens, we see the truth. And the truth is that there was never anything wrong with us. Something just happened to us that really compromised our beliefs about ourselves and really hurt and left a lot of pain. But then we find the miracle of healing, and we want to share it with others. And there's so many different forms of healing,
Yeah, so beautiful, so beautiful. So what I find as a result of having gone through my own healing process and continuing to go through it all the time, life is always evolving, and there are always new openings and new challenges, is that I have capacity to hold space. And I think that's the most important piece, really, is that, our energy as we do our healing is a safe stronghold for other people. Even if we don't say anything, there's a sense that they're seen and heard, because we can be with that. And if I'm with a client and I'm triggered by their whatever they're going through, or the way they're presenting, or, if they're in a pattern that they can't shift, then I have to come back and look at myself and what's going on there, so that I can, okay, how can I be with this person fully and allow them to be where they are and not judge them?
Yeah, absolutely. And that takes mindfulness, right? It takes getting to that space where you have the wisdom to see that, because again, when you're still stuck in that suffering and pain, I know at least for me, I always needed something to feel better, I was too focused on myself because I was so scared and so ungrounded. But just as you spoke to, the more I've healed and grounded, not all the time, but more often than not, I am able to sort of check in and become mindful, and so that I can be present for others. And so that I know that I have my needs met, so then I can help others to heal. But I think until you're in that space, your energy is so, all over the place that it's hard to really give of yourself. You're not as strong of it. You can't channel as much because you just don't, you haven't found that stream, basically.
Yeah. And for me, I think it has manifested as kind of this stinginess with my energy, protectiveness. It's like there's not enough of me, that kind of feeling. Mm-hmm. So as I have healed, there's a lot more of me. There's more generosity. There's more that I can hold and be with. And I don't have to fix anybody, I just like to ask questions that can help a person see themselves and what might be in their way. And the other piece that you help me think about is I help people get in touch with their life purpose. And this is really important. You were talking about it earlier. When we really understand our calling, then that can motivate our decisions and our direction. And it's really beautiful to see people start to pursue those things that, because of those the dampering effects of their life experience, they haven't felt that they were either worthy or that it was okay or safe to pursue the vision of what they're here to do. So it's really beautiful when people start to open up to that.
Yeah, it is. And I feel like that's everyone's sort of their birthright. I feel like that's what we come here to do, is to open up again to the truth and to see that true, when you're speaking, what I thought of when you said that you finally felt like you had more of yourself to give, you recognize that infinite abundance that is each of us. We all have infinite abundance, but when you're in that place of lack, it's pretty miserable when you're like, well, you can't have this, or I'm supposed to have that because I don't have enough. I don't have enough. I feel like that's the thing that runs through our heads when people are in this state of lack and addiction. It's like, I need more. I've spent so many years of my life needing more of so many things, and it's exhausting. And it's ironic because you think that, that's going to make you happy. You're like, no, I need to look out for myself and just chase these things. But the best moments of my life are those brief moments where I just have that sense that, oh my gosh, I don't need anything. I don't need a single thing. It's like this, these brief moments, and I hope I have more of them. They're a bit of, ephemeral right now, but I think as you get older, I experience more of them. But just that sense of, I'm fine just as I am. I don't need anything. And it's like this peace, it's freedom. That's what it is. Like oh my gosh, I'm free from all these beliefs that hold me down, that bind me. Well, I need this to be happy. And because this happened to me, I'll never be happy. And that goes back to trauma. I have my own trauma. And for many years, I felt, well, I'll never really like myself because of what happened. I'll never really be able to accept myself. That's just how it is. And it's like this, like I'm handcuffed to something. But then you realize that you're the only one keeping yourself in that chain. So when those chains release, we open up to that infinite abundance and we see it come through us. And it's a great feeling. And it's like your heart opens, it's a heart opening thing. And you channel it and you recognize that, oh my gosh, that's the best feeling in the world. Not getting everything you thought you wanted, but finding that it was always inside of you and letting it go out. I think people who might not quite understand it, to me, it's kind of like the feeling when you first kind of fall in love with someone, or you feel love, and it's like, why do I feel this thing in my chest? Like I feel like something's opening. It's like something's happening in here, and it's because you're kind of allowing your heart to open a little to connect with something. So that's kind of intense conversation, but I feel like it's all like you said, finding your life purpose. It's like you recognize that there's something so infinite and abundant within you that you can freely give. and that can really, inspire and change others. And that is the greatest glory of life, more than anything you can obtain, is what you've always had to give.
Absolutely. And that beautiful place of peace that is at the core of that, that's really the most important thing that I can do in my day, is to do practices that ground me in that.
Yeah.
And that's really the directive I've gotten from my guidance, is your work is to stay in connection with the divine, to stay in connection with guidance, to stay in connection with my body, with nature. And everything else comes from that. And this is really my money journey days, is that, yes, I pay attention to the details of my money and I have goals and visions, but on a day-to-day basis, it's okay, what's the right next action? And having that come from a place of relaxation. I spent a whole year focusing on relaxing around work because I was so compulsive when I would sit at my computer doing bookkeeping, and my poor body suffered for it. So learning how to come to our work, light a candle, and make it a sacred time of being with your business and relaxing and letting the flow come in. And then as soon as I start to tense up, okay, time to step away and just walk around the house, play my violin, go outside in nature. And I find I'm so much more productive when I really follow that energy flow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you shared that, because I think it's so important. I think people can often listen to podcasts or people who have reached success and are doing great, and they feel like, oh man, like they're just awesome and I'll never be like that. And they must just be perfect. But it does, once you reach that state, it is kind of, so if you think of a flow as like a flowing channel, it's kind of like a river. So it's like, you can be in the river, but you can always get out, and I think when you describe those moments where you're kind of getting like, really caught up in work and kind of super focused or obsessive, and you're like, I need to reconnect with what's real. It's like you kind of wade out of the river and kind of need to get yourself back in the flow. And I think that's important for people to know, that even once we found that place and we've learned how to be more mindful and in flow, it's a constant practice. It's an art. It's something we consistently work at. I'm not there, but again, it's like you find yourself spending more time in the flow as you start working on it.
Yeah. And I think what happens too is that we have less tolerance for the discomfort of being out of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Really beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. But I know for me, and I don't know if, I guess everyone finds it this way, because you kind of have to hit bottom before you really can move forward. But, I've spent a long time still struggling with the same things, but it took what it took, if that makes sense. I felt at certain times like I'm so over this and I just want to, just focus on this and be able to flow. But, it can take a while to really work through those things enough that you're actually ready to let go. It's kind of like the blossoming of a flower. You kind of have to trust that there's a certain amount of time we spend with, certain troubles and certain things, that we can't just force it to be gone. It's like there's a certain amount of work that has to take place, and then things kind of open up.
That's really true. And I think that grieving is a part of this picture that you're talking about, that when we feel safe enough to grieve what we lost, what, we didn't get that we needed, or whatever it is that's that we're running from, really, it's like we're running from the pain. And if we can do that grieving, that can really help to more consistently be in the present and make our decisions from that place of relaxation and self-love.
Absolutely. And thank you for saying that, because that's exactly what it is. It's ultimately, it's that grief. Allowing for grief is so important, because if we try to cut it short and say, I identified it, I healed a little bit, I'm going to move on. It's like a weed that just is going to come right back up if you don't get to the root of it. Right. So that's what I was getting to, is that you got to trust that, yes, it's frustrating when you're like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I just want it to be over. I don't want to care anymore about this. I don't want to care about money. I don't want to care about food. I'm so done. But the grieving process is so vital, because it is that last little piece where you're literally sort of releasing this belief you've held, but also this life or reality that you thought you were going to have. And that's, whether it's like not having a past that didn't include trauma, or getting the life that you thought you wanted, and, being able to release that and be able to say, I'm just so sad. There's part of me that's still just so sad that this happened or didn't happen, whatever it is. And just sitting with that, and then, going deep enough that you kind of hit that point where you say, okay, I did it. And now I can I think I can safely release it now because I got right in there. Yeah, it's so important to allow that expression of grief and sadness.
Yeah, it really is. And the other thing that occurs to me about this is that we're on a natural trajectory of evolution. Our soul is going to know the next thing. And you were speaking to this earlier, that when we're ready, we'll be at the next level and no sooner.
Yep.
And so we don't have to worry. There was this saying from a saint: does a baby elephant worry about becoming a grown-up elephant? And it's
Is it going to happen? Am I going to be a big elephant one day? Wait and find out. I think you will. Yeah.
We all will. And our evolution will happen very naturally, one day at a time. And so sometimes what I've noticed when I've been in a growth period where I'm opening up, that there are tears that are coming up, and I don't have to even name what they're about. It's just shutting the old me.
Yeah. Yeah. That purification process.
Yes.
That will happen many times throughout your life, where you're literally releasing what you once were. And it's so fascinating because, it's what happens from one lifetime to the next, but then also many times within one lifetime. We think that we're the same person, like through this one lifetime we're in now, but we're not. We're many different kinds of people, maybe like the same general physicality and expression, but we're constantly changing, just the same way that when this lifetime is over, we just keep changing more and more and more, and in a different physicality, but it's all part of the same beautiful, infinite process. So when you can be more comfortable with that and trust it more, because as you said, I've had times like that too, where I just start crying. I don't know why. And our natural inclination is usually to question things. Well, why is this happening? What is this about? But trusting that, again, it's sort of like an energetic release. It's that purging. So we just allow.
I love that. I love the word purification too.
Yeah.
These things happen on all different levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, this has been so beautiful and such a profound conversation. I would like to get, a little more specific into the money piece. So I feel like we just covered like sort of the broad big picture about what this is really all about. But for those who their thing is financial, is money, I'm curious about when you have a client come to you and they're in this place where maybe they're not really that spiritually inclined, but all they know is they're so tired of this cycle with money, where it feels like they're constantly struggling with it. Their relationship is just very tumultuous. What is your first approach? How do you help someone in that state?
I have them do a money biography and go through every year of their life, recalling any memories that had to do with money, and also any traumatic events that happened in their life. And it's a very cathartic process. Okay. And then we will go through that together and pick out some of the patterns that we see, or maybe help to explain how some of those things have affected the person in their life today, if they haven't seen it. And that's the first step that we take. And then we look at their parents' patterns and what they've inherited so a lot of times our patterns come from rejecting our parents' patterns. So if your parents' patterns were, for example, that they fought constantly about money because one was a spender and the other one was a tyrant, or a Scrooge, then we're not going to want to have anything to do with money. I see this a lot for people. So recognizing that can really, really help to be able to claim your own relationship with money, and that it's not money that is so painful. It's that experience of, these two opposing sides and then taking baby steps to maybe just start writing down your numbers every day. Just write down everything you spend and everything that comes in every day. So you start to develop a capacity and a comfort, or do a mindful money practice where you're looking at your bank accounts every day and looking at what's coming in and going out. And because that money innocent really needs to just start building confidence with engaging that it can be. And I recommend lighting a candle when you're doing any kind of thing with money, or pausing and taking a moment to ground and meditate. And
sort of making it sacred again.
Yeah, making it sacred.
Making it sacred.
So, it's hard to work with me and not have a spiritual element. If people just want to do the practical stuff, that's not me, because my understanding and my experience is that it just has to be beneath the surface. We have to, if we could have engaged in the way we wanted to, we would have by now, right? If we could have stopped spending just by knowing we should stop spending, we would have. Or just by having somebody tell us, stop spending compulsively. You're hurting yourself. Oh, okay. Oops, I did it again. We have to go beneath what is causing those behaviors. So for a spender, what I suggest is, Amazon is a huge trap for so many people. So leaving things in your Amazon cart before you press submit. And with larger expenses, talking to somebody. Now, it takes a while for the ego to dislodge from these patterns of I want what I want when I want it. Mm-hmm. And so with some people, I have to keep reminding them, reach out. And I had one client who would always say, well, I didn't want to because I didn't want you to tell me not to, And gradually there's more willingness and understanding that I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. I just want to explore it with them to help them look at all sides of the decision and see if it's what they really want to do. And if they do, that's totally their choice. If they have the money and they want to do that. That's the thing that people don't understand, is that it's your choice. And a lot of times people feel like anytime they spend, they're doing something wrong. If somebody's in a spending pattern like that, and they've tended to have compulsive spending, there's a sense that I can't buy myself anything without feeling guilty. And so there's never that gratification of giving to yourself. So you have to learn to receive. And yeah.
And that, gosh, there's just so many things that tie in, because I think another reason why it reminds me of struggles with food is because unlike other addictions, maybe drugs and alcohol and all those things, you have to have a relationship with money. You can't just stop dealing with money, same with food. If you have trouble with food, you can't just stop eating, you have to learn to have a relationship with it. And then what you just said reminds me of people who do have a history of sexual abuse or trauma, where they have to learn that, they still might want an intimate relationship, even though they've struggled with being okay with maybe being seen or touched or feeling pleasure. A lot of people who have been through that don't feel comfortable or feel like they can feel pleasure the same way as you're describing. People with money, it's like, well, now I can't buy anything. And I can't do something with money that feels good because I did that too much and it got me in trouble. So now it just has to be, I can't enjoy it. But, again, same with the sexual part, you can still feel joy. You can learn to, but it comes to, recognizing that you just are deserving of that, and always have been, and can have it in a healthy way. It doesn't always have to be a harmful way.
Yeah, there's definitely a parallel with the two paths for sure. And being able to open up to our sensuality and our sexuality really helps with opening to abundance on the money side as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine, because it is a little bit about, it's feeling, because as you spoke of earlier, it's about feeling big and feeling like a presence, feeling like it's okay to feel like you have desires and needs and enjoyments, it's okay. You know, you don't have to keep yourself small or limited with money or sex.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So then that's one of, so you have people who are overspenders. What about people who are just really fearful about, you know, not getting enough money and like a lack mentality, who just feel, I think that's one of the, you know, you're 8, but where it's like just this timidness around money, where it's like, oh, I'll never have very much and I can't spend it. I can never use it.
Yeah, that's probably the money innocent. It could be the money victim too. And I'm going to speak to the money victim because I spoke to the money innocent a minute ago. The money victim is the hardest one for people to look at. I had a client really get upset with me when I pointed it out the other day, and um, I probably shouldn't have. But anyway, uh, it's really important to be able to see when that part of us is feeling like we're at the mercy of something outside of us, whether it be our history or the IRS or COVID or anything. And there's probably a grain of truth to any of that, but that posture of feeling powerless is always going to keep us in a stuck place, you know. And so watching those stories that we're telling ourselves over and over again, about being terrible with money, or, you know, the government's taking all my money, or whatever that story is, and the feeling in my body around that is so palpable. It's like this feeling of shutdown and heaviness. And to be able to recognize when that victim is present and to give her compassion, you know, because she's scared, she's angry, to get in touch with the anger can be really helpful. And it's part of that healing process that we need to be able to receive and open to more abundance coming in.
Yeah. Okay. Now I got another one coming in, which is love. You know, I think that sex and love are obviously combined, but, you know, sex we think of as more tangible. But when I think of love, because when you spoke to that, it came to me that, you know, that it can be hard to believe that we will receive love, that somebody would actually care for us, that somebody would have those feelings for us. And that there can be this shutdown of, if you have this mentality of no one will love me, then we often repeatedly subject ourselves to situations where somebody will be a little bit distant, and then we'll have that shutdown where it's like that real plays in our head. Oh, I knew it. I knew I wouldn't get love. I knew I wouldn't be loved. And it sounds like that's kind of what your client does is, oh, I knew this wouldn't work out. I wasn't going to get this money. I never get money. So it's sort of like this shutting down and going back into our wounding, back to our wound, back to our victim mentality of, that's not for me. It never will be.
Absolutely. And if we can't open to love, we're not going to be able to open to money. I like to say that money is a loving energy. And if you can connect to it as a loving energy, then that can be a really powerful way to transform that relationship and to let more of it in. And I take people through a guided meditation where you have your 2 hands out and you're receiving through the left hand, moving the energy through the heart space, and giving through the right hand. And when you do this, you go inside and visualize this flow of the energy into the left and out of the right through the heart space. Then you can see, well, which is easier for me, to receive or to give? Where is the energy stuck? Can I let it move through my heart? So we have to move through some of these shifts on that somatic level.
Yeah. Interesting. I like that. I'll try that. Try that. Yeah. I think that, that money is a loving energy. I think that's one of the biggest things, is that money kind of almost has this sort of almost like a sinister vibe in our culture, just because we're struggling so much with this, you know, these vast amounts of wealth for certain people, for certain organizations, that's just above and beyond and so lavish. And there's just so much talk about money, and people do things for money that are, you know, not very aligned with morals. And money is just such a huge thing. So I think that people associate money almost as bad. It's like, kind of like, oh, I shouldn't want money. If I get money, I'm greedy. But then there is also a lot of greed. So it is a very complex presence in our world. And it is unfortunate because it is loving. Ultimately, it's just, again, it's just a provisional thing. It provides you. It's what, if you take away, again, the external, it's just that which is coming into your life and bringing into your life, right? It's just, and it comes and goes. It's an exchange, just like love, they're one and the same. Love, money, food, all of it, sex.
And you can use it. You can use it to influence things in ways that you want, which brings me to the social justice aspect of this, that using, which I mentioned in the beginning, using your money to help support change in our culture. So giving to causes that you care about. And this can be a motivation for making more money. We kind of have to have a plan in our mind about what we're going to do with the money if we make more. Otherwise, it's scary for some people to just have money around. So to think about, I need these savings pockets, a vacation plan, I need an emergency savings, but also I want to be practicing philanthropy. I want to be supporting the causes I care about, can be a really beautiful motivator.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great idea. Cause I've never really thought about that, is really focusing on, cause we often are like, well, I want love, I want a relationship, and I want money. Well, it's like, well, what will you do with those things? Cause so often, like you said, we'll get those things and it's like, well, this isn't what I thought. And I don't know how to sit within this, or, we just know that we want these certain things because it's more the idea of the thing, but it's like, well, what will you do with the actual presence of that energy? So I think acknowledging that, like, well, if I got super successful and money comes my way, I'm going to, reinvest it and use it to create a center and to help as many people as possible and channel out messages that I think are, really beneficial for our highest good, and just really set it straight. And because also, as we know, the spoken word is powerful, and what you ask of the universe you will get. It's just a matter of what we're asking the universe for, being aware of what we're asking.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a manifesting tool, is to watch what you're thinking and watch what you're saying and watch what you're writing, and having intentions that focus on what you want.
Intentions. And that makes me think of last night. It was a full moon. It was the full moon in Leo. It was beautiful. And I write down my, the things that I'm releasing, the things that I'm grateful for. You at a full moon, you're talking about what you've sown, what your harvest for this cycle. And then at the new moon is when you write down your intentions. Well, what am I looking to bring in? And so I always write them out, and it is powerful to write those things out and then speak them and then think them. Have all those things be consistent. That's when you're really become a manifester, the magician.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. So then let me ask you this. How do you have a few tips for people when they are stuck? Let's say, you've had a fairly healthy relationship with money. You've always just had enough. There's not been like super struggles, but not super like, abundance. But I would say that's my situation. Like, I feel that I've always had enough for exactly where I was in my life. I could not enough to have my own home or something. So, but I feel that I've had this, it's like this lid. It's like there's this subconscious knowing that's like, well, I'll never have that much. Like, I'll never be like abundant. And it just kind of, I can feel it. It's like I have this block to the belief that I could actually have an abundance of wealth, because I believe in the work I want to do and that I would give it back. But it's like this lid I have on. And I've thought about that more recently because I'm kind of, shifting gears in my life and wanting to more so move on and invest more. And I wonder, I feel like I'm blocking myself. And I think a lot of people get to that point.
Absolutely. And I think that the awareness is absolutely the first step. So that's fantastic that you're really feeling it on that energetic level. Mm-hmm. And bringing in some intentions, or I call them authentic intentions. They have to really sit and land as true for you. One that's really helpful is, I have a wealth mindset, or I'm cultivating a wealth mindset, or I'm willing to grow into a wealth mindset. Just start to bring the energy of that word into your space. And
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, good. And then whatever your specific vision is for your wealth, you can start to spell that out as well, write it down, and catch yourself in those places when there's that feeling that's never going to be me, catch yourself and question it. The Katie Byron method of, is it true? Is it really true? How do you know it's true? And then looking at, well, what am I afraid of? What's the worst thing that could happen? What's likely to happen? So these are all inner ways to start to break down some of those patterns that are getting in our way of really moving to the next level.
Yeah. Yes, that's so helpful. I'm going to start practicing that. That's going to be a new practice I'm incorporating.
Excellent.
Yeah, that belief, for that and for love, because those are the two things that I've felt a lot of that block to.
Mm-hmm.
So those are, because again, everything kind of goes hand in hand. So, I think when you welcome in, abundance comes in all forms, right? I think of, there's in some oracle cards, abundance is like the cornucopia card. So it's like, and a cornucopia is like this giant, I don't even know what it is, just like this big old, some kind of container, holder, and it just has like every kind of like brilliant fruit. So abundance is really, it's love, it's success, it's money, it's, healthy foods and relationships. It's, you're getting the whole thing, and everything comes together because again, it's all love. It's the same love energy. Love just comes in different, sort of manifested forms.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I feel like what you've shared with us today, Susan, can help with money. Absolutely. But it's kind of getting my my brain going about just every different channel, every different form, that the things that we're looking to bring more of into our life, and how to do that, and how to shift your mindset around it, and how to have practices around, because when push comes to shove, we do have to get into action. Yes, things unfold at their own time, but not if you never plant the seed, not if you don't tend to the seed, for it to grow and blossom.
So true. So true.
Yeah. Wow. So thank you so much for sharing all of this beautiful information with us. And you do have a big event coming up. You are hosting a symposium that I would love for you to tell us about.
All right. It's called Money, Justice, and Spirituality. Amplify your love and prosperity to make a profound difference in the world. And I'm so excited about this event. I'm just so honored to be hosting it and to have a beautiful panel of brilliant speakers that I'm interviewing right now. And we're going to be broadcasting this starting on March 7th. So you'll get to explore these areas of justice and how it integrates with our spirituality and with our money. And there will be some experiential pieces to it as well. We're going to have a gorgeous opening ceremony with prayer and song and poetry. So it's going to be really, really rich. And I'm very excited about it.
That is so exciting. Congratulations. That's a huge undertaking. I know it takes a lot of work. So how incredible to, conceive of that. And now you're bringing it forth into fruition, birthing it.
It's all being carried by grace and some of my effort, indeed.
Beautiful. All right. Well, I can't wait to attend. And if people want to find you otherwise, where can they find you online? Any medias and website?
My website is moneywisdomcoach.com. You are invited to take the money type quiz. That's on the homepage there. And I'm also happy to talk to you. There's links on my website to set up a money insight breakthrough call. And you're welcome to set one of those up so that we can take a look at your situation and see if I can support you in making the changes you want to make.
So cool. Well, you are such a remarkable resource, Susan. So thank you for the work you do. Thank you for your courage in the path that you've walked in your own healing to bring you to a place where you give of yourself so generously to others, and that you have this unique offering, that you listen to that calling, and now so many others benefit because of it. You speak to something that is so prevalent to so many people. So thank you so much for that. And I was wondering if there's any chance, if you have your violin around you anywhere nearby, if you might be open to sharing with us a little bit of music
I will, if you want to pause the video, because it'll take me a second.
Absolutely. Wow, that was so beautiful. That was so beautiful. I feel even more at peace right now, just from just closing my eyes, taking some breaths and listening to that. There's something about the string instruments that always, it's like it's directly connected to your heart.
It's
There's
true.
just something so beautiful and profound about it. Can be so sorrowful, yet also just so beautiful and inspiring. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, you're a woman of many talents. It's so cool. So amazing. All right. Well, Susan, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been such a pleasure and such a remarkable conversation.
Whitney, thank you for having me. It has been an absolute pleasure. Love talking with you and hearing your wisdom as well.
Thank you. And we all can't wait for your symposium. So go get them and good luck with it. I hope it's a fantastic event. Can't wait to watch.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Take care, Susan.
You too.